Masters of the Universe Revelations is a confusing mess and just recently stabbed me through my kidneys. And we haven't even reached the second half of the series, and yikes.
You'll never see it.
How long do you want to bet before Rotten Tomatoes remove the score because of sexism?
This is a parody. Buy the fucking show!
Now let me make this clear, I'm not a huge fan of the He-Man franchise. I've never really been into that big show, mainly because of shock of all shocks, I'm actually too young to remember anything about it.
Little boys in spandex!
However, that's a problem, as this isn't a reboot or a new series, this is literally a continuation of the original show, which aired in the early 80s. I literally didn't exist during that time. You can tell because the world was at something called peace. So if you're coming into this show without having any idea who these people are, I suppose if you had to watch the reboot that came out in the early 2000s, you could at least have a bit of a grasp on it, but it still follows the continuity of the 1980s show. But sure, let's just run with it. I'm not a total newbie to the Masters of the Universe franchise. I've seen Adam at his finest. Now that I've gotten that relic out of the way, I think we need to talk about the marketing for the show. Now, if you don't know, this show was written by Kevin Smith. You know, the guy who used to be Silent Bob. Yeah, someone tells me he should have kept his mouth shut. Wait, there's gonna be a Clerks 3. Oh no! Anyway, in case you need to be alerted to this, during last year, Kevin Smith was all about how he was working on this new animation, and that apparently our series is literally all about He-Man. Which is why you decided to kill He-Man off in the first episode. And replace him with Teela as the main character. You know, if you're gonna pull The Last of Us 2, you could at least have tried a little harder with that golf swing. I'm really getting tired of this false advertising, especially when you have the writer outright saying that the product features a specific character and they'll be front and center, and then you kill them off. Twice! Oh, yeah. Spoilers. That doesn't really denote that the series is focusing on them, especially when the main character Teela is front and center. You know, I get wanting to subvert expectations and all, but with the way the trailer was set up, as well as the promotional material, that was a really terrible thing to do. It's a heavily overused trope nowadays, and most of the time people do this in the improper way, i.e. deceptive marketing. Now, I know a lot of people will most likely cite Metal Gear Solid 2 as a good example of how this is bullshit. Where if you think you're on a mission with Snake, and he was even playable in a demo that people got to enjoy, and then all of a sudden, you're playing as this goofball. However, here's the thing. That's one of the points of Metal Gear Solid 2. It's meant to play into subversion and messing with the expectations of the players. Lies and deceptions are part of the game's many themes. Besides, Raiden becomes a kick-ass cyborg ninja, you're not getting any complaints from me about that. This is Kevin Smith outright telling people to their faces that he's a huge fan, saying that He-Man is the main attraction, and then...
Why do you gotta be such a sussy bucka?
Just because you managed to pull the wool over everyone's eyes, that doesn't make this any less of a dick move, dude. What, did Kevin Smith secretly get possessed by the ghost of Ryan Johnson and thought this was a good idea? Or maybe he had Neil Druckmann on his shoulder whispering in his ear. I'm done talking about Kevin Smith. I hope Clerks 3 sucks. Now what about the show? What's it about? Well, after He-Man dies, breaking his magical sword in two and killing Skeletor in the process, tensions are raised in He-Man land of Eternia. As it turns out, Prince Adam was He-Man! You know, I never really got that. In the original series, Adam and He-Man had basically the same body type and haircut. Did no one really put two and two together about this? Oh, and I'm sure there's some reason that He-Man fan will probably fill out in the comments with a huge essay explaining this. So if you're doing that right now, thanks man, I appreciate you for your dedication and hard work to explain this concept to me in a comment that I will most likely not read, but will still heart because of your dedication. You'll also get a can of tuna! Anyway, after it's been revealed that He-Man and Adam were one and the same...
I am done with every one of you.
Tila.
You knew, didn't you? I have laid my life on the line for every one of you, but you're all a pack of liars. And Adam was no different.
Lady, your friend just died. Heck, if I recall correctly, you were supposed to be in love with him, I think? And you're upset that people didn't tell you about his secret identity. He wasn't a victim? He just sacrificed himself so the entire universe wouldn't explode. You know, I understand being upset that your friend/love interest died and you were lied to about this, but do we really need to make this about you and spit on the dead guy's legacy? If you're really looking to make me like Tila as a character, you're doing a pretty shitty job of it, Kevin. And it's not even that it makes me dislike the character in this carnation. It's not like I'm against the idea of Tila getting her own show and showing off her character. Heck, He-Man in the original show wasn't exactly what you'd call a deep character, unless you count rippling biceps and pecs as a personality trait. Alright, so before we actually continue, I do need to point something out. Prince Adam actually did have quite a deep character than what people often give credit to. There are two examples that I think are the best to describe this. The first being Adam's insecurity about how He-Man is a respected character and how he's viewed as not being very dependent, even to the point where he questions if he should keep up his secret identity. That's an entire episode dedicated to that, by the way. The second being Adam giving up the power of He-Man when he believes that he's no longer worthy of it because he killed someone. So there was a bit more depth to Prince Adam, and I just want to make sure that you guys know that I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the character. It was just a joke. Tila, on the other hand, in this show is more of a puppet for the narrative, meaning she's not really a real character, and more of a person who solves the issue of the plot and not really being whole. Take, for example, the annoying wizard, Orko. He dies! Oh yeah, they decided to kill off a character. I know that sounds like I don't care, and that's because I really don't, but I'll get back to that in a little bit and explain why. Fun fact, Orko was the favorite character of Filmation head Lou Scheimer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, so F it. Even to the point where he voiced the character. So you'll have to forgive me if I don't buy Smith's interpretation where it actively seems to disregard Lou's Filmation series. Anyway, this is supposed to be a long-time friend of yours, but Tila really doesn't seem all that sad about it. Hell, Evelyn is more crushed, and she's supposed to be a former villain, and Evelyn actually had a connection established with Orko before the little guy sacrificed himself. Or how about this little number? Tila spends how many years, I don't know, bad-mouthing magic while praising technology, but as soon as she meets a villain doing the exact same mindset, only a little bit more vibrant,
the true power in Eternia has always been man's mastery of technology!
You violated the law.
Oh, that's lovely. He's insane! Does this change your opinion on it? Nope. She's not even a protagonist in her own story. Every other character pushes the plot forward for her. She's just there to yell at people and get into fights. There's a good story about discovering the hero in you when your hero is gone, but this ain't it, Chief. Honestly, Tila is just in a long line of strong female characters who don't need no He-Man in their life. It really makes me wonder who the bloody hell this show is for, since most of the marketing was going for He-Man fans, a mostly male and older demographic. Funny enough, considering all the pecs, abs, and loincloths. And then they decide, yes! Then again, this isn't the first time that this happened. Not the first time that Adam got stabbed like this by a villain. Hell, Mumra did it back in 2016. Thanks, Rob David! I hate to use the term, but Mary Sue is a label that I'm sure a lot of people are willing to plant on the Tila, especially considering that the male characters have to be brought down quite severely.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
I don't normally talk about this sort of things, and it's not my wheelhouse, but if you have to severely kneecap your male characters in order to put your female ones on a pedestal, that doesn't make a strong female character in my eyes. Neither does making faces that look like you're constipated. What do I mean? Well, let's just take a few moments and look at He-Man, the former main character. King Randor says, "It's called parental pride, something I hope to have in you one day." Yep, King Randor ain't proud of his son. They don't explain why. If I had to guess, it has to do with his disappearances, but they never explain it. Gets tricked easily by Skeletor into unlocking the magic of Eternia. he dies! And He-Man's death has Man-at-Arms being ousted by his kingdom and gives Teela her big moment and break off from the Liars. He-Man dividing the sword was actually what leads to Eternia's doom. Adam chooses his wimpier form, gets mocked by the other champions, and while at the same time showing Teela's sick moves, dog! Now, obviously, I'm just cherry-picking some scenes in order to validate my point here, much like how everyone else on the internet does and makes their own arguments. But I suppose I should bring up the big point here. You know, with all the lies and deception on Kevin Smith's part, I had no idea they stole the plot from one of the worst Sonic the Hedgehog comic stories ever. Sally Acorn got nothing on you, girl. Oh god, I'm getting Amber flashbacks from Invincible. Oh god! What is with this bullshit? Someone was paid to write this. Wait. You wanna know what this actually reminds me of?
My 12-year-old sister killed herself. She died right here.
Okay.
God, I can always find a way to shit on Yeek. What next? You're gonna make Skeletor into an incel?
Look at my face, child. It has furnished for me a lonely life in which none would have me as a man. So, then let me be a god.
Damn it, I was joking!
You funny fools! I will make all the sluts suffer for this indignity! They always choose muscly buffoons like He-Man instead of alpha males like me! You will all rue the day you doubted my supreme dignity!
Fine, we're moving on from this. Honestly, there were some positives. The animation was very well done, and the fight scenes are at the very least well choreographed. If you're looking for action, this is probably a good series if you want to turn your brain off. Heck, some of the flashback scenes were also pretty entertaining. It just has that old school charm from the older part of animation, that while action-oriented, was still pretty lighthearted. It's a shame that we get lines like this afterwards.
Wait, he actually said, "You're all wet"? He-Man had the sense of humor of a teenager who didn't get out much.
And yet, not a minute later...
Take no life advice from the likes of Evelyn, Andra. Remember, she's the only one here carrying around a Skeletor in her closet.
What the hell did you just say?
There are other problems with the writing, and I'm not gonna go too deep into them, so... Remember when I brought up Orko dying? Yeah, well, earlier in the episode, we get Orko's backstory. Even though this backstory completely ignores and overrides the previous backstories for the character, Kevin Smith's crew literally had no idea what they were writing and decided to say, fuck it! Oh boy. Gee, I wonder why we're learning the sad backstory of this character who just joined our group last episode. It's not like this wasn't a death flag that would even make a Rocky of JoJo fame stand up and say, Is Orko a popular character? Kevin Smith apparently thinks so.
People with kids are gonna meet this guy, and Orko is gonna come up, and kids are gonna fall in love with fucking Orko! Oh.
Makes sense to me. Andra, a character who's been with Teela since episode 2, and yet I had to rewatch the second episode to get her name for this script, doesn't come off as an actual character. We barely get anything for her, so her inclusion is just... weird? I mean, she does something, but it's at the tail end of the final episodes. Evelyn actually gets some development, and it's actually pretty interesting. At least until Skeletor comes back and she immediately throws that development away. Mossman gets one-shotted by Skeletor. And you wanna know why this is so bad? It's because Mossman is actually voiced by Alan Oppenheimer, Skeletor's original voice actor.
Curse you, Kevin Smith, you cantankerous bearded troll! You will be the first slut to take my gray skull bone!
It's a real bad case of irony, but let's look at something. The body count! In the course of 5 episodes, we get He-Man dying twice, Skeletor dying and then coming back, Orko dies, Roboto dies, and Mossman dies. You know, I think the death card is being a bit abused here. I get it's supposed to be dark, but this just comes off as pointless. You know, before this mess came out and I watched it, I binged watched Hunter x Hunter first 4 seasons. A great show, by the way. It's certainly worth your time.
So, I think this is where he stops trying to do the smoker's cough voice version of Mr. Plinkett. And if that really hurt your ears, Well, I'm sorry, but...
He should have kept doing it so he could ruin your ears even more, you cantankerous, diseased animals!
And that show, while having some pretty bleak and dark undertones, the show still managed to be very lighthearted and still touched my heart with how close this group of misfit characters came together in order to pass the Hunter exam. At the very least, the characters didn't have the red flags of death and at least didn't worry about them most of the time. Plus, the fights were pretty kick-ass. Back to Masters of the Universe.
I stand corrected. I'm sorry.
I don't know what to really say here. I know I'm gonna sound really nebulous here, but if there's one way to really describe this show, it's that it doesn't really come from a place of love or respect. That's the vibe I'm getting. Even as someone who's not a huge fan of the original, I can smell bullshit from a mile away. Smith's original claim was that this was a continuation of the original show, and that's why people got excited. After all, when you bring back something from people's childhoods and into the modern era with all new technical marvels and crisp animation, you're gonna get some eyes drawn to you. Close to the premiere, however, he started backtracking on that and calling it a spiritual successor, claiming that they couldn't get the rights to the Filmation series. Somehow. I don't know how that happened. And now Kevin's playing the victim, now that people are voting down his show, and surprise Pikachu face, acting like he didn't lie to people. Because attacking your audience who had issues with the marketing, your personal statements, and you pushing that He-Man was gonna be all the focus in this new series? Newsflash, he ain't. It ain't good, Chief. The show does have good qualities, but they're kind of tarnished by this underlying vindictive nature to rip the original and what made the original so beloved. Yes, the original was simple, but there was a charm to that really drew people who almost 40 years later came to this show hoping to see their childhoods be rekindled in a modern, sleek animation style. It was also popular enough to have an online exclusive subscription-based toy line for over a decade. Masters of the Universe Classics is its name. And Kevin Smith decided to just spit on that by lying to his audience. If Kevin Smith really cared about the original show, he would have made something that was both good and respectful, and not rely on this stupid subversion in an attempt to make the show deep. If he was so proud about this show, why would he lie about it? Why would you go after YouTubers who dared to question your product? I don't normally care about wokeness or forced politics in the show. I don't even think that's even here right now. If shows have these elements and I still find them to be entertaining, I'll watch them and can look past those aspects even if I disagree with the politics. You see, politics don't determine my opinion on entertainment. When it comes to that, what I care about is a show being good or bad and how it's advertised to the viewer. A show, a game, a movie, a book, or whatever can have a protagonist of any gender in its lead, and I'll still watch it and enjoy it if it's good. And in all honesty, if this was a spin-off show where people were honest about the actual main character, I could forgive a lot of this. I probably wouldn't like most of the show, but at the very least, there wouldn't be this underlying toxicity that the show has. And as for the people who are defending this or saying people are review bombing because of a female-led show, people were actively lied to. They were told a show that had promotional materials that directly had He-Man on the front and center, and they were lied to. I'm sorry that the concept of deceptive advertising flies over your head, but if you can't understand why people will be upsetty spaghetti about that, then that says more about you than it does me. That's it. I'm MangaKamen. Go away now. Oh boy! I wonder why we're learning the What the frig is wrong with me? Oh boy! Gee, I wonder why we're learning the sad backstory of this character who just joined out of group last I know why, eh? It's 1 in the morning. Dies, and He-Man's death has oh man, that is... much better. I'm done talking about Kevin Sniff. Kevin Sniff. You know, I get wanting to subvert expectations and all, but with the way the trailer was set up, as well as the promotional material, that was a really terrible thing to do. It's heavily overused. Oh man, that really hurts my throat, god damn it. It just has that old school charm from older part of animation where... Oh god, that's killing my throat.